Hello and welcome, my friends, to the Zenpreneur podcast. This is your host, Mario Lanzarotti. Today, coming to you with another special guest. His name is Chris M. King. He has a history of making seemingly impossible goals a reality. He became an NCAA ice hockey player after only learning to skate a year before. I want to know about that. He landed a job in the Neuroscience Institute of a hospital with no clinical background. I definitely also want to know about that one. And he declined a lucrative job offer to instead be broke and live out of his car to build a company. That's what I call dedication. And today, that company thrives. As it turns out, there is a science to bending reality. He's dubbed the executive witch doctor. Today, he is called when individuals or professional teams have big dreams and little time. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mario. Glad to be here.
And Chris, remind our audience, what's the time right now for you?
Yeah, it's 4:30 in the morning. I'm here in Los Angeles. I'm born and raised on the West Side, so here I am.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you showing up for what matters to you in the world and for the impact that you are creating. Chris, tell us about these stories that I just read. You know, you've never skated, and then you decided to go into the NCAA, and you make it to the top. How's that possible?
Yeah, well, it was Division II, so it wasn't like Boston University or something. So, but no, I had a roommate who was playing hockey, and I had been on those inline skates, you know, the rollerblade things, and he said, you know, you could skate, you should come out and play, and just come to a pickup game. And so I grabbed some of his, you know, old disgusting gear that was way too big for me, and we went out and played a pickup game. And it was a blast, you know, and I, you know, obviously didn't do well, but I had enough fun to where I thought to myself, you know what, this is actually something I want to do, because it was something he said. He's like, you actually skate really well, you know, especially considering that you've never been on the ice. And I just got this crazy idea that I wanted to do it. I got so lit up. I started doing stick drills on the floor of a pizza place that I was working at. I was on the ice every day for a year, just teaching myself to skate. And by the time I tried out for the team, I made it. And yeah, 6 months later, there I was in the state championship.
Has that experience shaped your story where you were living in a car and you were building a company at the same time that today, as we mentioned, is thriving?
Yeah, that, you know, when I made that decision, I had a job offer on the table that was, you know, learn how to be a commercial real estate broker. And I just thought to myself, well, if I do that 2-3 years down the road, I'm going to be married to a certain lifestyle that I'm going to have to support through an income. And I don't think I'm going to be happy doing that 2 to 3 years down the road. And then I'm going to be trapped. And I'd already been trapped in my life. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. And so I thought to myself, this is nowhere near the dumbest idea I've ever come up with, you know, build my own company. I mean, the ice hockey thing was a crazy idea. I, you know, decided that I wanted to trash my marketing career in tech and become a radio DJ. I made that happen. So I was like, okay, this is not the dumbest idea I've ever had. So I decided I want it bad enough. That's what I'm going to do.
What would you say is it that you have that a lot of people don't have? Because you're telling us about all these different stories that, from what I'm seeing, require a incredible amount of dedication, effort, consistency, patience, that then lead to success in different ventures in your life. What would you say is it that you found within yourself that you see a lot of other people are lacking?
I don't know that they're lacking it. I just don't know that they're willing to embrace it the way I was. I mean, there's a few things that I think my secret weapon, my one secret weapon, is deciding not to care about things that were absolutely true. For example, you know, when I decided that I wanted to do the hockey thing, it was like, you've never skated before. It's like, yeah, that's true. And I don't care. I don't care that I've never skated before. I don't care that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't care that I'm not going to make any money at that. I don't care that they're never going to hire me for that kind of job. Like when all of those things feel true and maybe very much are true, when I decided that I just didn't care how true it was because I was so on fire about the thing that I wanted, that's how I made magic happen.
Does I don't care equal I'm not scared?
No, that's a great question, Mario. No, I was terrified actually, but I didn't care about that either. I think maybe I was just more scared of living a soul-sucking life, of doing the thing that I was just going to be phoning it in. I don't know. I would say that I had a dysfunctional childhood, but that implies there's another kind. But I do know that I'm a very high sensation kind of person. If I'm bored, I will check out very quickly. And so I maybe it's a level of psychological dysfunction, but I will take exquisite pain over boredom. Like if I just can't have incredible highs, I'll probably create some pretty painful lows because I can't deal with the boredom.
I like that you say I create these painful experiences. Is it that you unconsciously create them, or do you make the conscious decision and say, you know what, I'm going to just run into a wall, figure of speech, until I get so fed up with running into a wall that I'm like, I've had it. I'm never going to do this again.
That's again, great question. Was I conscious of it? It's funny that you mentioned run into a wall. I actually did that a week ago. I ran into a plate glass wall, almost broke my nose. It's just finally almost healed, but that's what that mark is. But I think, I have in the past created a level of misery to where I had to get myself out. And maybe that's not the best way to do it, but it worked. It's like I'm just going to keep messing things up until it gets to the point where I'm sick of myself. It's like, okay, I'm over it. I am over myself. I'm over my nonsense and my whatever I want to judge myself as, stupid, whatever. But that is the great mobilizer for me. Like getting mad is how I'm going to mobilize when I'm just sick of it enough.
Do you... Let me switch the conversation to the opposite of that for a moment, because I want to know more about this. Is there another thing that drives you other than, I'm sick of this, I don't want to do this anymore, I've had it, all right, now I'm going to do this instead?
Generally, call it passion, call it enthusiasm, call it desire. When I get really connected to something, it's pretty tough to deny me that thing. There's what I call a beautiful marriage of commitment and devotion. When I am totally committed to something, which feels very masculine for me, very choice, very headed driven, I'm deciding to do this. That's my commitment. And when I marry that to my devotion, which is just something that I love, that I adore, that I want so badly, and I attach those two things to my vision, I absolutely cannot fail. And that's what I've seen in our clients. That's what I've seen in other people. When you marry your commitment and your devotion to your vision, you cannot be denied.
So let's dissect that, because this is very interesting. So first of all, you started by saying that commitment is more of a masculine sort of energy. You didn't use the word energy, but I'm going to add to it. Are you saying that devotion is more of a feminine kind of energy, or is it something else?
That's exactly what it is. It feels very masculine and feminine. The masculine in service to the feminine, right? Everything is energy. I mean, everything, right? And we all have that masculine and feminine polarity in us. The masculine is all about structure and order and go and do and execute. And the feminine's much more whimsical and creative and nurturing and innovative and chaotic in a lot of ways. And so when the masculine can create and hold that container, then the feminine can be fully explored and expressed. And once we know what the vision is, now we can go charging off after it. It's very similar to ballroom dancing. If you look at salsa dancers, the man creates and holds the frame, and then the woman does all the styling and all the cool stuff, and he's in service to that. It's very much like that
How?
within my own human, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very much right there with you. I like this conversation where this is going, and I want to go even deeper because what I see, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, that today most entrepreneurs, men and women, funnily enough, lack access to their feminine. A lot of women are becoming very masculine, very much go, 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 push, 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 think, 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 think. And so I'm wondering, do you agree? Do you also see that? And if not, do you see something else happening?
No, that's exactly what we see. We see that in the corporate world. We see, what we call the queen bee. It's kind of this woman that shows up
Mm,
very much in her masculine because she believes she has to. Um,
right.
but most of the time, they're not particularly happy that way. I
Yeah.
love, there's a quote from Dr. Robert Holden. He says, if it seems like there's something missing from your life, it's probably you. And when I first heard him
Mhm.
say that, it sounded kind of funny to me, but then I realized the depth of that statement. And, when we're looking at a lot of the women in the corporate world and the business world, their businesses and their lives are running them instead of the other way around. And that's no way to live.
Yeah. How does someone, regardless, men, women, gain a more healthy access to their feminine side that leads to what you described earlier as this surrender? No, not you didn't say surrender, as devotion, but we haven't talked about surrender yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll get into surrender too. I think the first step is to acknowledge that it's there, right?
Mhm.
I think most of us will feel it when something is quote unquote off, right? What does that mean? What does that mean? Where do you feel it? Um, I think that's a great way to look at it. Does it feel like your life is running you?
Mm.
How are you conducting the orchestra or are you playing all the instruments? Like what's happening in your own field?
Do you have particular tools that you employ for yourself, for your clients that give them a greater access to that feminine side?
Yeah, it's all about tools for us. I mean, it's so necessary to make these things
Mm.
actionable. The first thing is to understand what you're feeling. And I'll ask this to somebody who's really in their masculine, and the answers that I'll say, what are you feeling? And the answers, they'll say things like, they'll feel something is unfair, or they'll feel something is unreasonable. They'll feel something is stupid, right? And I'm like, none of these are feeling words. Right? Like, let me break it down right quick. Mad, sad, glad, fear, shame, guilt, love, surprise, disgust, something in that, what are you feeling? Where in your body are you feeling it? This is where I
Mm.
sound a little woo, right? I sort of combine the science with the woo woo thing, but what is it you are feeling? Where are you feeling it? Are you feeling tension? How in your body are you? Because if you're just super in your mind all the time, you're not using your full human system, your whole instrument.
Yeah, yeah, I fully agree. I do the same approach that you just mentioned with my clients and with myself to come from an awareness where you said, "How am I actually feeling?" and what is the response to the words that I'm hearing in my head. Like if I'm like, this
Hmm.
is stupid, this is unreasonable, this is not fair. It's like, okay, what does that feel like? Where do I feel that in the body, and what is it like? And
Hmm.
then people can get more of a connection. And what I'm seeing is that everybody's at a different place, but especially people that are more on the sort of corporate logical thinking route are having a much harder time getting access to their bodies because they're so conditioned to just use their minds. And we obviously
Hmm.
live in a society where living primarily in your head is very much rewarded. And it's like cutting yourself up from what you're feeling so you can just
Hmm.
keep go, 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 and then use all kinds of stimulants and suppressants to just keep you moving through it. But as we see nowadays, we live in burnout, depression era like never before, and so that's why I think this work that you're doing, I'm doing, and is so incredibly important. Tell me a little bit more, like to go a couple steps back. When was the time for you in your life that you made the discovery that integrating this feminine side of you is actually helping you reach the kind of goals that you want?
That's a really good question. When was the time when I realized that? I've sort of always led with that kind of energy. I've been very much I've been very chaotic and random, at least seemingly. So like all throughout my schooling, it was very difficult for me to sort of follow a plan or a program. I think I was born on a frequency of defiance and maybe and disruption. So I tend to bring that level of chaos. And that's I haven't been very strategic in my life. Like becoming an entrepreneur was a very precarious choice for me because I'd been so just my lack of strategy, much more whimsical and chaotic and driven by something that I was passionate about. I wouldn't do the prudent thing or the thing that would make sense. I would do the thing that felt right. So in some level, I've kind of always been this way. It sort of took me a little longer to integrate the masculine and be able to put four walls around me. So, but yeah, I think maybe I got a little lucky there. I've sort of been connected to it.
Yeah. When you say integrating the masculine, I understand what you are saying with that. I would love for you, though, to break it down in maybe a simpler language that somebody who isn't 100% there yet can make sense of it for themselves.
Well, where is the structure in your life, in your business? What does that look like? How have you built this thing? When did you start building it? What was the driver? Like, what got this thing moving? Was it simply like I got to pay the bills kind of thing, or was it that deep desire? Was there something that we mentioned the devotion thing? Was there something that really lit you up and sort of moved you in that direction? And did you create the plans around whatever that vision was? Like I said, when you have both of these things, you're balanced. And again, going back to how balanced do you feel right now? Do you even know what it means when I say, you're in your masculine or in your feminine? Where's your own polarity? We look at society, you mentioned it earlier, very much in the masculine, like all the time, like 80% or something. We're really out of balance. And so it's like, do you even know what you're doing all of this for, whatever this is, beyond paying the bills and because you have to? What's your level of consciousness around your choices in your life? How conscious were you in deciding to have kids or follow that career or whatever? Like, is it just a box that you checked? Is it something that you thought you were supposed to do? We get a lot of that. These 40 somethings that are like, I've checked all the boxes, but I'm not happy. I don't get it. Like,
would you say that the reason so many people are unhappy in the business world is because they are not making the time to really evaluate who they truly are? Or let me change that, like who they truly want to be in this world, and then align themselves, like align their vision, their mission, the way that they bring what they have to offer to the world? Is it because of that, or is there another reason that you see?
There can be a lot of reasons. You asked some very good questions. Have they done the work to really ask themselves the question, is this what I want? Is this something that I'm doing because it was sort of automated, because it was what I was taught or told? What do you believe about that situation right now? Like if I could wave a magic wand and money weren't a factor, what would you be doing right now? If all jobs paid the same, what would you be doing right now? Is it even on the menu? I mean, does that job even exist? Like, this job didn't really exist. I have a nationwide network here in the States, and none of those people, there's like 9,000 people in this professional networking group that I'm in. None of them do what I do, not one. And I love that you mentioned the word alignment. I can work in a very binary world, aligned or misaligned. It's not about good or bad, right or wrong, aligned or misaligned with the experience you want to have. Mark Twain said the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And if you discover that why and you're not living it, or if you haven't discovered that why, then there's work to be done.
Yeah, this is so true what you're saying. And I can only relate to it with my own experience, where the moment I discovered my why, which is what I'm doing today to raise the consciousness of humanity through in the entrepreneurial world, through my coaching and my guiding. The moment I discovered that, everything in my life was leading up to that. Like I remember after I became severely depressed, close to suicide, chronic back pain, I discovered Tony Robbins, and I was like, it was so clear. It's so hard to explain this to people that have not had this experience, but it was like, bam, that's it. That's your path. Done.
Right.
No question. I was like, okay, I got it. And then everything that I did, studying, going to New York, co-founding a business there in the e-commerce space, I told everybody, I was like, listen, my life's mission is to become that. I don't know yet how or when, but all I'm doing is leading me there. Just want to let you know that I will not be doing this for the rest of my life. And once I got to the point where I'm like, okay, now I'm all in. I mean, I haven't had a prolonged experience of depression or any guilt, shame that really lasted for longer periods of time since then. Just disappeared. Why? Because I freaking love what I do with every ounce of my being. And so to your point, it's like there's this voice. Once you know, there's nothing else that you can do. It's like if you don't follow that, that's like in the back of your mind saying, what are you doing? Stop doing this. You know you're lying to yourself. You can come up with all kinds of reasons. You know you're lying. And so I love the way that you present that.
Yeah, your life is like this beautiful piece of sheet music that's never existed before. And your human system, mind, body, spirit, all integrated, right? This human system is the perfect instrument to play that music. And your job is to tune that instrument, right? And once you get that, to your point, once you have that awakening, you have that awareness, the I don't care comes in real fast. You don't care about all the reasons it can't be done. You don't care why it's a terrible idea, because none of that matters anymore, right? It's just, and when your soul is on fire like that, this is the reason that you came to this planet. You didn't come here to work hard, pay taxes, and die. You came here for a reason. And when you discover that reason, and when you're willing to commit to it, to devote your life to it, number one, you cannot fail. And number two, you will never be happier. You will never be more fulfilled. It will not be fun getting there. The ego is going to get in the way. It's going to be all dark night of the soul kind of thing. I'm sure you have like your story of getting from point A to point Z, right? It's not easy. It's not fun, but it is so worth it. The juice is always worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. There's nothing more rewarding in life than identifying the path for you and then walking it. Even when I was doing this at the very beginning and I really didn't have a lot of money, it really didn't matter. Like there wasn't a time in my life where I was sitting there, I was like, oh man, this sucks. I don't have any money. Like I can't afford this. Look at all these other guys. They're driving in their Lamborghinis. I'm like, okay, great. I get to change lives. I get to be there with people that are breaking through the dark night of the soul. And now I'm getting messages from like, oh my God, this was so amazing. Look, my life, what I'm doing now. And that just warms my heart. So I love this. I'm very much in alignment with you. And I want to also ask you, because I know that you talk about this, I want to know about your perspective about money, right? There's a big conversation, but like, how do you approach the money conversations with your clients, for yourself, in a way that is aligned, in a way that people can hit their money goals, but not sell their soul in the process?
That's a great question, and there's so many answers to this. I'll try and be succinct on this. First, you need to understand what money is. Second, you need to understand what your relationship is to it. right? So
Mm.
if here's a great exercise that I'll give you, and anybody that's listening, this is a fantastic exercise to know what your relationship to money is. Write a letter as if money were a person, right? Like if money were a person sitting right next to you, Mario, right now, I say, hey, money, what does Mario say about you? Tell me about your relationship to, and what does he say? And I ask this to clients, and a lot of times they'll say, oh, money says you're not here enough, you don't do enough for me, you're not around, like, there's not enough of you or whatever. It's like, if that were a friend of yours, would they hang out with you? Like, listen to the way you talk about money. I wouldn't hang out with you. You're like talking shit about me all the time,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is, maybe you think, oh, if I get too money, then I'm greedy. And it's like, well, no, you actually need this in order to show up and serve in the world. And then that gets to the point of what is money. It's a tool. It's a resource. And it is just another manifestation of energy. Everything is energy. You got time, you've got space, so you've got physical space in your head, you've got money, you have, like, these are all resources. People that look through the lens of have or have not when it comes to resources tend to have not. Time, money, have or have not, right? When you recognize that money is energy and it vibrates at a frequency and it's always in flow, always in motion, you start understanding, how do I leverage this resource? How do I get my money to make money? How do I get my time to make time? It's a resource. It's a tool. Understand what your relationship is to that resource and then align it with the outcomes that you're looking for. And anything in your brain that does not align with that, but then I'm greedy, then I'm this, and I'm all of the judgments or whatever, that's just egoic nonsense. Let all that stuff go.
Mm. I love that. Tell me, how do people change their relationship with money? Say, I'm writing my letter, and now I'm realizing, oh, I'm super super greedy in the relationship with money. I never really acknowledge it. I always complain about it. It's like, damn. Like, now, how do I go from there to a more abundant relationship with money?
Great question. Being a coach, I'll answer your question with a question. What would you do if you screwed up in a relationship with a friend of yours?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would take responsibility. I would
Take
apologize.
responsibility,
And I would
apologize.
I would offer some new agreement to a higher agreement, right? That I have with money, where here's what I'm gonna do from now on. I'm gonna maybe be grateful to you. I'm gonna reach out to you, check in, and see how things are going with you. I'm gonna plan more time with you to do fun activities, things like that.
And that is how you fix your relationship with money. Just like you would any other relationship, my friend.
Mm.
Like, you write a letter, you sit down and stare in the mirror. There's no one way to do this, right? But the point
Yeah.
is, you repair your relationship just like you would with a lover, with a partner, with a friend, with a family member. You take responsibility, you own it, and you make those course corrections, and you say, will you do this with me?
Mm.
I've seen
I
people do
like
this
that.
and they cry. It's so beautiful. They just open up and everything changes.
Mm. Do you find that the conversation of money, because you talk about sort of healing, does it require looking at maybe parental relationships or other relationships that also have something to do with your relationship with money?
This is where I sound terribly insensitive with my clients. I tell them, like, I don't care. It's not that I don't care. But it is that I don't care, because at the end of the day, I can dig around in somebody's childhood and find out why they are the way they are. But the
Mhm.
overwhelming majority of the time, we still are where we are. Understanding the why
Right.
is very academically entertaining, but it doesn't really do very much unless I got to go back in time, unless I got to, like, literally kind of time travel and disentangle this. I can skip that part. It's going to save a lot of time. And, and my clients, typically they've been in therapy. They've done all that. They're like, I don't want to talk about my childhood anymore. I'm like, good, because I don't want to hear it. Like, so if we can skip that part, because at the end of the day, you are where you are. How you got there is not particularly important most of the time. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, here's where you are. So if we can just move forward from here without
Mhm.
without getting into the circus of the history and sort of reinforcing that story. We already have an identity around that, so we can let all that go.
I'm with you. I agree. Talking about time, you say that you help people that have big dreams and little time.
Yeah.
How do you go about helping somebody that considers themselves busy, very focused on a variety of things, and they still want to make that big dream happen? What is it that you can do with them that helps them almost like quantum shrink time? Like it would normally take you 6 months, but because they're doing it with you, it takes them a fraction of that.
Yeah. Well, in a quantum, you got to understand there's a quantum field there, right? And a task will expand or contract based on what you're holding in your consciousness as reality. Like your sales numbers, you're going to grow to what you think you're going to grow. You're going to create the reality of your understanding. That's just what you're going to do. So if you think it's going to take you 6 months to do something, it will. If you think it's going to take you 3 years to do something, it will. So the trick is to first adjust what somebody thinks. Even when I go into an organization, that first meeting, they're going to want to bring me their KPIs, their key performance indicators, their sales history, the market trends. I'm like, don't bring any of that shit to the first meeting. Like, I don't want to see any of that, because it's going to mess up what I think. And so the first step is to understand what it is that somebody believes, and how do I start shifting that? Like that's the first thing.
How do you go about doing that? So let's say I'm just going to create an example here. Let's say I want to grow my business to, I don't know, $20,000 per month. And I'm currently at 10,000, and I'm telling myself, oh, that's going to take like half a year to double it with what I'm doing right now. Where would you go in and say, hey, stop?
Well, first I'll explain the science behind it a lot, because, we do have a science-backed approach. I started in this when I was a kid. My father, who barely got out of high school and never went to college, he's an electromagnetic compatibility engineer. So we had a lot of nerd speak in my house growing up. And so I'll relate, through the lens of science. I'm like, well, are you familiar with the Bannister principle? And most of the time they're not. Some of them will know. It's the 4-minute mile guy, right? The first man to run a 4-minute mile, May of 1954. Right. So Roger Bannister beats the 4-minute after decades, right? People have tried to do this. He's the first guy that does it. And after that, his record lasted 46 days. Because right then, and as soon as he crossed the finish line, it became possible in the collective consciousness. And so it's like, look, whatever you think, you're right. Seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing. If you believe something to be a certain way, you're going to see it that way. You're going to create it that way. So step one is, here's the proof that what I'm talking about is not crazy. And that usually starts to kind of get the rust off the bolt and things moving a little bit. And I have a client last year. She said that we doubled her revenues, we eliminated her stress, and we saved her marriage. It took us 4 months.
What would you do to somebody who says, yeah, okay, I get it. There's these other people that can do it, but I have all this doubt. I'm not sure. I understand it works, but will it work for me? How do you go about that?
Yeah, we need to start aligning the frequencies, right? Maybe you've heard there's a phrase of dress for the job you want, not the job you have, because it has an effect on how you feel, right? So it really is, how do I get somebody into the frequency of the thing that they want and out of the frequency of where they are right now? Right. And, sometimes we're going to change your clothes. We're definitely going to change the way you speak. Like, we're literally going to change the way a client structures their sentences. We're going to disentangle 4 or 5 decades of speech patterns very quickly. We're going to do that inside of 6 months and change the way they show up in the world. That has an effect on their psychology. That has an effect on their neurochemistry. That has an effect on their energy field. Right. So it's all science. And so it's like, how do I get them vibrating in the frequency? And a lot of times we're going to use visualization techniques. I'm not a big fan of affirmations. I tell people, if that works for you, that's great. But I know when I'm lying to myself, it sets off my internal bullshit detector. So that doesn't really work for me. But if it works for you, great. But visualization has been proven to have physical world reality effects. We know through the lens of subatomic physics that looking at an object has a physical effect on that object. We know we can lose weight, we can gain muscle mass by sitting there thinking about it. Like, this is all proven science, right? So there's no magic happening here. But if I can get somebody into the practices of this, right, into a visualization practice, starting to adjust their frequency, getting them to move and walk and think like the person who has what they want instead of the person who wants what they want, then we're going to start to move the needle. Now, it's tricky because the brain actually gets more pleasure out of the wanting than the having. So I got to fight neurobiology a little bit on this. So, but once we can get somebody practicing this, and it is a practice, just like, look, you want to, work out and go to the gym and get shredded or whatever, you're going to have to do this. It's a daily thing. Like, you got to put in the work. You got to get your reps.
Mm-hmm. What would you say are some of the non-negotiables for you that help you elevate your frequency, or at least maintain the higher level of frequency?
Accountability is number one. Like, it's just non-negotiable. Like, I'm the sole creator of my reality. Actually, and by the way, don't think for 1 second like I'm perfect. Last week I burned down a relationship, and I mean, I burned it to the ground. It was quite spectacular. I did it in spectacular fashion, and I have to own that. This friend of mine will probably never speak to me again, or it's going to be a while anyway. And I absolutely take 100% responsibility for everything in my reality. Everything. If I'm not making enough money, that's on me. If I stub my toe on the bed, that's on me. If 100%, everything is my creation and a result. Everything that's happening in my world right now is a result that I can track back through the map of neuroscience, that I can track back through energy. And if I understand this is how I got here, and I'm willing to let go of the fear and the shame and the guilt and all the things that come with it, then I can say, okay, this point of analysis, here's how I got here. What do I need to do moving forward? How do I need to start making adjustments so that tomorrow is different? But I can't do that without full responsibility for the reality that I am the creator of all of this.
And when you talk about accountability, what does that look like? Do you do it with a coach and like groups, friends, or other people?
It's everything. Everything in my world is my creation. Nothing happened to me. I created it all. And, in concert with, call it God, source, spirit, universe, energy, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, right? But I am co-creating my reality. Nobody did anything to me. I walked into that wall. I mentioned I walked in that glass wall. That was the end result of something that started in my energy field probably a week before or something. I did. I kicked the bedpost. My CMO quit. I burned down this friendship. Like, obviously, I'm not getting the messages from the universe. I'm not paying attention until I ran into a wall. I'm like, okay, I got to slow down. Like, I just drove the wheels off this thing. Burned down the friendship. My CMO quit. I stubbed my toe. I smashed my face. Yeah. I need to pay attention to what's going on here because I am creating a mess right now.
And other than accountability, are there any other daily tools that you're using, such as meditation, specific workouts, breath work, or anything else?
Yes, all of that. There's so much. I mean, you've been in this world, you get it. There's so much stuff. People. Meditation, that's a non-negotiable. I tell my clients, give me 4 minutes. You give me 4 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 30 days, I'll change your life. I've made that bet more times than I can count, and I've never lost. Like 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes, okay? Like, you just do. So I don't want to hear it. So the meditation is great. The visualization is great. Breath work is awesome. You don't need to go to Peru and have a psychedelic mushroom, or do some sort of psilocybin journey or something. You can get high AF on your breath work, man, and it will change things. If it's not complicated. It's not easy, but it's not complicated.
You mentioned sort of, Peru retreat. Have you done any retreats where you like a certain time of the year, you go away, you do something, you do go through a process? Is that part of sort of your yearly routine?
Yeah, I take time off throughout the year. Usually I'll take the week leading up to December, in between Christmas and New Year's, and then usually most of the week after New Year's, I'll just be completely off the grid. I go down to Mexico. I might be in the jungle in Tulum somewhere, or just completely off the grid. You got to get offline. I'm way back in my performance coaching days, I would tell clients that, your hobbies, your recreational activities, your vacation, these are high performance tools. And if you're not using them, you're killing your business. You can go to Hawaii and tell yourself, oh, I just work for a couple hours in the morning, but you might as well just not bother getting on the plane and going to Hawaii. You are where your brain is, and you have to take the time. Even when I love what I do, like you. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else with my life. And yeah, I sort of have to force myself into that downtime. And it's necessary. It's, like you said, it's a practice, it's a discipline. That's where the masculine comes in and says, you need to stop.
You just said something really good. I wrote it down. You said, you are where your brain is. Like, and I'm paraphrasing sort of, you are where your mind is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true. That is so true. I love what you're saying. And like, this is a daily reality for so many entrepreneurs that think that, oh, I don't need downtime. It's just the more hours I add on my calendar, the better it is. And you have some very prominent figures like an Alex Hormozy, who publicly says, like, fuck your morning routine. Like, you don't need a morning routine. Just get up, work, done, right? And I see a big red flag. I agree that you don't need a 3-4 hour morning routine. You don't need that for sure. But then again, it also depends on what you want out of life. If all you want to do is just make money, okay. But if you want to make more than just money, if you want to have freedom, if you want to have peace of mind, if you want to have thriving relationships, then this mentality of do is terrible. So I'm wondering, what's your take on what an Alex Hormozy publicly states?
Well, I get real Nietzsche on this real quick. I have my way, you have your way, but as far as the right way, the correct way, the only way, there's no such thing. So again, looking through that binary lens of aligned or misaligned, if this is what you want, if you want to grind it out and work 80 hours a week, and that's what you want to do, that's, I would offer for somebody's consideration, challenge what you think about what you want. Is this really what you want, or is this your condition?
Yes.
Like, really dig in and ask, because maybe, it's when we start getting into shadow work and whatever, it's like, no, I know this is it. It's like, how do you know? It's in the shadows. Like, if you don't start looking in the shadows and really asking yourself the tough question with a real openness to answering it. I got a woman right now. She's asking incredible questions of herself. Her situation is that her 4-year-old child she hasn't seen in a couple of years. It's a really nasty situation with the ex and whatever, and there's a lot of authorities involved. There's a lot of legal stuff happening, and she's talking about how her child has just been ripped away from her, and she doesn't know where on the planet this child is, and she's going, you're right, and she could demonize the husband, and she can talk about the authorities and all this stuff, and she's like, how did I do this? What's my role? She asked a question the other day that I was like, wow. She said, am I doing this because there's a part of me that loves getting all of the sympathy from others? Holy shit. When she asked that, I went, damn, she's doing the deep work. Because can you imagine a mother who lost her child being honest enough with herself to ask that question? It doesn't mean it's true, right? It doesn't mean that she's like, but for her willingness to take that level of responsibility, to look under that bush, is this operating in the shadows? Is there something here? Wow. When you start asking that level of hard question, then you get to the real answers. If you're willing to hear them, whether it's a yes, whether it's a no. And then if it is a no, then your energy field is so clean when you move forward. You're so empowered to move forward. Those are spiritual gangster level questions. And that's the work you got to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this woman. What a great, courageous example of what it means to take responsibility. And this is where I was leading with the point that with an Alex Hormozy, where I don't know about Alex Hormozy. He seems quite aligned, though I would be curious to dig a little deeper with somebody like him. What I've seen is that a vast majority of people that are on this hustle grind path are doing it completely unconscious. They're like, when you ask them, why are you doing it? Yeah, I want to get the money, right? Okay, what's the money for? Yeah, I want to have the freedom, okay, what's the freedom for? Yeah, I want to be a person of respect, it's like, okay, why? And then it's like, and then I was like, well, does anybody in your family remind you of that? Oh yeah, my dad. Oh, so you just want to be like daddy. Why? I don't know. And then we dig deeper and then we see, because you're still craving dad's validation. You still want to have daddy come over and say, good boy, good boy. And even if he does it, you'll find another way of saying, he didn't mean it. It wasn't good enough. And so I personally, and this is the whole identity of the Zenpreneur approach, is that the hustle and grind paradigm, they come from a fear paradigm. They come from, I don't have it, therefore I got to go out and get it. And what you and I were talking about is everything that you want is inside of you right now in this moment. And some people might say, well, but I don't have the money physically right here. It's like, yes, not right now, but the more you step into the frequency, the more effortless the experience of you attracting the money and calling in the opportunities that will create it for you are coming in. So I like what you bring forward there, and also that reminds me, Tony Robbins, the quality of your life is a direct correlation with the quality of the questions you ask yourself. What are some questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis to make sure that you are staying on your path?
It actually ties to what you just shared. And I tend to stay away from the why question, why anything, because it's very mental for me. So when I move the why to a what or how question, then, well, what does this do for me? What am I getting out of this? How does this support me where I'm going? The critical thinking, like I said, I don't care why somebody is the way they are. So but for me, one of the questions that I ask is this an egoic desire or is this a true desire? Is it my truth or is it the truth? This is one of the most powerful questions I can ask anybody. And let me explain the difference really quick, because you mentioned like chasing after the money. I want to crush it in business. Okay, but is this an egoic desire or is this a true desire? Is it your truth or is it the truth? The difference is my truth is all about preferences and opinions. It's what I want and don't want, like or don't like. It's my truth. We hear that a lot of the West Side hippies over here in LA. Like, it's like, it's my truth. Like, okay, great. But the truth is a frequency. It's like the string of a guitar. The E string is E. There's no debating that. It just is. And the truth lands in your body. You can feel it. It's a frequency, right? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When my last relationship ended about 1.5 years ago, and she's a great friend of mine now. My truth was, I want to stay in it. I want to fix this. I want to figure it out. And we were a shit show. But I loved her and I wanted to be with her. That was my truth. The truth was, these two people need to break up because it is in the highest service of both of them. This is where the alchemy will come from. This is the thing that will elevate them. And I think I knew that on some level, but when it finally did come apart, yes, it was very painful. Yes, it was very difficult. But where we are now, she's one of my closest friends. And we have an incredible relationship. And if I was so married to my truth, it must be what I want. I'm like a spoiled little child, right? But when the truth comes in to dad me up a little bit, my life gets better. And I will tell you right now, and this is what I promise and warn clients in particular, is when you commit to a path of the truth, anything that was built on anything else tends to fall away. And it will be difficult, and it will be painful, and it will ultimately be awesome. Right? But is this an egoic thing? Is it your truth or is it the truth? Because the truth doesn't give a shit about your truth. It doesn't care about your opinions. It just is.
Yeah. I think that is a very beautiful distinction that you're making between my truth and the truth, and how you're getting to that, and also bringing in the sense of your body and knowing. And this is why it's so important to have these practices, that you move into alignment with the messages of your body, with your feelings, to understand, okay, what is this? Where's this going? Where's this coming from? What is it telling me right now? And then once you hear something or you come to a conclusion and your whole body sinks into that,
yes,
that's a big sign saying, yes, you're on the right track here. Keep moving in that direction. And just like you said, it is extremely painful, but it's painful to the idea of who you are.
yes.
And when that gets rattled, that part of your mind, that idea, idea that says, I am Mario and Mario is this way, that goes, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you move through that. I find that the painful experience is a lot shorter compared to you holding on to, no, this is it, and this is what I always do, and I'm just going to keep doing that, even though life is telling you, stop walking against the glass wall, open the window for a change. If you keep on that path, is way more painful. So great way that you brought that forward.
Well, and here's a tool, right? Because people will say, like, how do I know the truth? I said, okay, here's the magic way to do this. You create a container where it is safe to know the truth, where it's safe to hear it. This is not a brain exercise, okay? This is not a thinking thing. You want to know the truth. It's not a thinking thing. This is not the brain's job. It's a listening thing, right? So you create the container by saying, okay, I forbid myself to do anything with what I'm about to learn for the next 30 days, for the next 60 days, for the next 90 days, whatever it is. I am absolutely forbidden. I am not allowed to do anything with what I'm about to find out. Now, what is the truth? What is the truth? If you listen, you'll hear the answer as soon as you think the question. It'll just drop into you and you'll be like, whoa. But because the ego knows, if I learn the truth, I might have to do something about it, and I'm not ready to. It's too scary. It's too big. There's too many unknowns. Well, if the truth is I have to quit my job and move in and start my own thing, like, but how am I going to make money? And I don't know how to do that. And I've never done this before. Like, okay, it's not going to let you hear the truth. If the truth is I need to divorce my spouse, it's like, oh, but then how am I going to make money? And where am I going to live? And what all the things, right? The ego thing is not going to let that happen. If you say you are forbidden from doing anything for the next 90 days, and you're still under no obligation to do anything after that. I give myself permission to hear it without doing anything with it, to know it with making no promises. And I'm simply here to know. And then boom, it'll just land right in your body.
Yeah. I love that. That's a very specific, practical approach to that. I hope everybody's taking notes on it. And as we near the end of our conversation, I want to ask you one more question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, if you could spend an hour of your time with any person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh man, any one person. It'd probably be Keanu Reeves, actually. As much as my grandfather was my best friend growing up, Keanu Reeves is kind of, for me, this he's kind of this modern day Jesus sort of thing. Like, the guy just gets it. He really he has a humility. He takes care of people around him. He kind of lives in the real world. He'll walk around with a baseball hat on, kind of incognito, just around with the rest of us kind of thing. The things he does on set, there's no shortage of stories about how this man shows up in the world. And, he's become something of an anchor for me. because I've not been a great person my whole life, haven't always been, people say, God, Chris, you're so great. I'm like, I didn't come out of a box this way. Okay. I was a mess for a very long time. So it gives me like a touchstone to kind of be like, and even if I'm wrong about certain things or certain stories, maybe that's not quite true. It's like, I actually don't care if it's true. It gives me something to anchor to and call myself forward. So I think I just love to hang out with that guy and have lunch or something.
You're the first person mentioning Keanu Reeves, and that's actually, now that you're saying that, I'm like, I would love to meet up with Keanu Reeves, because I see these pictures on Instagram, him riding the New York subway, just sitting there, him donating and helping people out, and obviously he has done one of my favorite movies of all time, The Matrix. Hence, him being sort of like a modern day Jesus, Neo the One, and I think the story is even based upon sort of the story of Jesus, like in the way that it's created. Chris, tell us a little bit about what you have in stock for people that might potentially want to learn more about how they can work with you. And I remember you have a podcast, so please also tell us about that. And then how can people connect with you?
Yeah, thank you so much. The way to connect with it, we set up a special link just for your show and for your listener. It's our website is statusflow.net. That's FLOW, statusflow.net /the Zenpreneur podcast. Your listeners can go there, everything that they need to get a hold of us. The podcast is called Mindfuck. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. You can also apply to be on that show. We do coaching sessions, one-off coaching sessions. So far, I think my record for a sustainable transformation with a client is 8 minutes. So if somebody needs to get unstuck, they can engage in like a 6-month program. Maybe we can get it done in about 5 to 10 minutes.
I love that. And I highly recommend it. I'm actually looking at the site right now for our Zenpreneur podcast listeners. And I see here now accepting applications for live coaching on our podcast. I'm going to check that out because I find that inspiring that you're coaching people live on your podcast. And Chris, I will have you share the last words of the podcast.
Wow. I'm going to say, what if you're wrong? It's one of the things that I say that I share with everybody. All the things you think about what you can't do, what can't be done, what you can't have, where you can't go. What if you're wrong?
What a beautiful way to complete this conversation. Chris, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your expertise, your mastery with our audience. And thank you for being a loyal listener of the Zenpreneur podcast. And with that, we are complete.